Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video today I will be showing you how to debloat Windows 11. This will also be relevant for you guys that are on Windows 10 as well, as the tools and softwares we're using to debloat Windows are also compatible with older versions of Windows. So that's including Windows 10 and even older versions of Windows 11. Now I have just installed Windows 11 25H2 onto this PC, and I'll be taking you through the steps of how to debloat Windows 11 in a safe manner, because there's no doubt about it that if you strip Windows too much and disable too many functions or features within Windows, you may find you run into roadblocks when you're using certain softwares or applications, for example. So when it comes to debloating Windows 11, it's important to take note of what you actually use Windows 11 for. And when we're going through the steps and the process of debloating Windows 11, I'll show you exactly what the tools are doing, and then you can customize it to your liking. So the first thing I just want to show is the task manager as of right now. And it is important to note that this is obviously on a fresh Windows 11 install, but it was a local account. So we had the Ethernet disconnected and we bypassed the Microsoft login. So this is a local account, and you may find that if you are installing Windows and logging in via Microsoft, they might chuck in a few extra apps, a bit more bloatware compared to a local install. So as you can see, here is our system. It's a 9800 X3D with an RTX 5080, and we are just taking a look here at what's going on with the CPU and the memory usage. As you can see, stock, we're using 3.2 gigabytes of RAM, so not much at all, but we will be able to get this down to at least around 2 gigabytes. Because this is an offline account or a local account, that is quite low because of this. But like I said, with a full-fledged Windows install, with a signing into Microsoft, you may notice that this is more closer to 4 gigabytes. And as you can see with our background processes, this is already fairly low. Anything above 200 is pretty high, and the most important thing to remember is most of the bloatware that's going to be put onto Windows is stuff that you're putting on yourself. So that's like, for example, having multiple security softwares, RGB softwares. If you've got too much of that all running at startup in the background when you're gaming, then you may find that they're eating up a lot of your system resources. But for the most part, this is a pretty clean installation, but we will be able to get this process count down, and hopefully the memory usage, CPU usage as well. Obviously our CPU is pretty much sitting at 0 at the moment. We aren't recording on this PC either, so that's going to help this kind of just be a bare bones system that's doing nothing right now. Anyway, let's go ahead and go through the process of debloating Windows 11. So the first thing I'd like you to do is search for startup apps, and here are all the applications running at startup. So as soon as Windows comes on, these are quietly, or maybe not quietly, running in the background. As you can see, there's not a lot of default apps starting up with Windows, but in general use I wouldn't use Microsoft Edge anyway. I'd use Google Chrome and OneDrive as well. I don't use that, so I'd be turning both of these off. And I also don't want Windows security notification icons popping up or running in the background either. So as you can see here, we've got nothing running with startup. You can also checklist in Task Manager as well. You've got all these tabs here. So if we scroll down, these are our startup apps. Sometimes they will appear here and not in the other section. So just go through here and make sure that nothing you don't need to run in the startup is enabled. And obviously when you come down here, this is what's running in the background. Before we actually go ahead and debloat Windows at all, we do just want to create a system restore point. So if we type create a restore point here, the first thing will pop up here. We're going to click on create, and we're going to name it something we're going to remember: before debloat. We're going to let it create a restore point. The tools we are using will actually create restore points for you if you prompt it to, but this is just for safety measure, just so we definitely have a system restore point in place. So next we're going to go head over to a web browser. Any browser is absolutely fine. And obviously I'm not going ahead and using this installation of Windows anyway, so we're going to use Microsoft Edge, and we're going to search for one tool for everything. This is from a guy called Chris Titus Tech. This tool has been around for quite some years now. As you can see, 2022. So this tool definitely does work on Windows 10, and I used it many times in 2024 with Windows 10 itself. So what we want to do is come to this code here and click copy, and then we can just minimize our web browser, and we're going to search for PowerShell. We're going to click on here for run as administrator, and with the prompt that comes up, we're going to select yes. We're then going to hit Ctrl V and paste in the code that we just copied, and then hit enter, and it will open the interface for Chris Titus Tech's one tool for everything. And as you can see, we've got the software or utility running now. We're not going to need any of this right now, but this is a handy little section where you can actually go ahead on a fresh install and install all your favorite apps, programs, Discord, game launchers, display driver uninstaller, anything you might need. But what we're actually going to be focusing on in this video is a tweak section, and here is all the tweaks that you can possibly make within this utility. Now, for the most part, I recommend people select standard, and you can go through here, and pretty much the first tab is essential tweaks. These are simply tweaks or changes that Chris himself deems as essential within Windows 11. We have things like disable game DVR, disable telemetry, which is a big one as we don't want Microsoft or Windows spying on us. And we've got another one here, set services to manual. That's something that's going to help us kind of debloat Windows 11 itself. Other ones like disable hibernation, which isn't enabled, and location tracking, etc. Now, if you hover over these, it will give you a brief explanation of what they do. And then we have got an advanced tweak section underneath, and it does give you a brief explanation of what these do. And you can also open this up as well, and it will just tell you the changes, the registry changes that are going to be made. Now, if it's your first time using this tool and you're a bit wary about whether you need any of these things, what you can go ahead and do is select minimal. And as you can see, it's only selected the minimal amount of tweaks that are necessary for debloating Windows 11, which is set services to manual, disable Explorer automatic folder discovery, disable telemetry, and disable consumer features. Now, I believe in older versions of this utility, this was actually called standard, laptop, and then this is pretty much the preset, which is definitely ideal if you're on a laptop. I don't think it's going to do any massive harm if you do the standard on a laptop, but it's important to note that laptops do behave a little bit differently to a desktop computer, and disabling certain features, if it's disabling power saving features, for example, you may want to keep them enabled for a laptop as it's not really for power use, it's more for convenience and portability. Before this example, we're going to go ahead and select standard, and one thing I always do is I obviously create a system restore point before, so I'll uncheck this, I don't need another one. But if you haven't created a system restore point yet, please click this box at the top. And I don't also select run disk cleanup, that's something I can do later on, but this is on a fresh install of Windows 11, so there's going to be no temporary files or anything on the disk that needs to be cleaned up as of right now. So from here, what we can actually do is come down to this button down here and select run tweaks. And what you're going to see is in the PowerShell box, you're going to see that it creates a system restore point for us, and it's going to go through and apply all the tweaks that we have selected. As you can see, it's setting services to manual. The good thing about services being set to manual rather than disabled is that they can operate or they can turn back on as and when Windows needs it. So if we actually go ahead and look at services, we won't see everything applied until we restart Windows. But as you can see, certain things are set to manual, and that is for a reason. Sometimes you won't need things running, but if Windows does suddenly need a service to be running, then by having it manual, it can just start itself back up. So now that we've done all the essential tweaks or the standard tweaks within this utility, I will also show you something called Run O&O Shut Up. So this is included, and it was for a long time not included with this utility, but it is quite a handy little tool, and you can kind of go ahead and see every single thing that it is going to do. Once again, this is just going to disable a lot of the nuisances or things that we don't actually need within Windows. And the best part about it is they do have recommended settings, so you can go ahead and let's say, for example, disable app notifications. It's recommended as limited, meaning maybe not everyone is going to want to disable app notifications. It would be something I do, but it does depend on everyone's use case. But within O&O Shut Up, we can actually click on Actions and we can select Apply Only Recommended Settings. And it does prompt you that it wants to create a system restore point prior to doing this. Just for this example, I will create one. And as you can see, 98 settings have been successfully set. What we can do is close out of here and it will give you a little prompt as well. We will need to restart the PC to see the changes and it will ask you to restart here. But for now, we're just going to close out. Now, another thing you can do within the Tech One Tool for Everything utility is you can add and activate an ultimate performance power plan. It says here the power plan was installed and set as active. So if we go ahead and have a look at that, we do indeed have the Tech Ultimate Power Plan enabled already. And you can customize this how you want. Some people may want to just have the display turn off after a few hours, but never put the computer to sleep. That's something you may want to do if you have an OLED monitor. It's something I actually do myself. Just have it set as 2 hours for the turn off the display time. And that way I'm not going to be damaging my OLED monitor at all. So now that we have actually successfully gone ahead and debloated Windows using One Tool for Everything and O&O Shut Up, we're going to go ahead and restart our computer. And then we're going to proceed on with the next step. Alright, so from here, our Windows is pretty much debloated, but there is one little software that I do like to use, and this is going to be to remove all of Windows pre-installed apps that we don't actually need. We're going to go ahead and search for Revo Uninstaller, and we're going to go ahead and find the link for the actual website, RevoUninstaller.com, and we're going to go ahead and download the free download here. Click on free download. Has actually created two. We're just going to open one of these setup.exes. We're going to select yes, and I obviously am English. Accept the agreement. Next, we can create a desktop shortcut if we want. We can just launch Revo Uninstaller. So as you can see, it's a pretty basic UI, and you've got a few tabs here at the top. Now for the furthest left section, this is going to be where anything that you install appears. So when we go ahead and add Google Chrome, Discord, OBS for example, it will all appear here. And the Windows apps are simply just the pre-installed apps that come within Windows 11. What we're going to be doing now is getting rid of anything we do not need installed on our OS. And I will just give you a quick example of how you do this. So let's right click on Dev Home and left click Uninstall. The first thing that will come up is make a system restore point before uninstall. What I actually recommend you do is to create one yourself, or you can have this box selected. Now what we'll do is hit continue from here. And then we're going to select scan. And these are the leftover registry items from that specific app that we're getting rid of. We're going to select all, delete, and then click yes. And as you can see, Dev Home or whatever it was called is now disappeared. And what I actually do to speed this process up, and I recommend that you just make sure you have a system restore point, because if you accidentally uninstall something that you do need, you can at least roll back to it. But because I know exactly what I want to remove every single time, and I've used this piece of software over 100 times, I'm going to head over to options and then the uninstaller. Then I'm going to uncheck the box for make a system restore point before uninstall. But like I said, you're more than welcome to continue using it with it making a restore point after every uninstallation. Let's go ahead now and select cross-device experience host, as I do not need this. And if you're unsure whether you need these softwares, it does give you a brief description. So this is for mobile devices. So I would imagine this just makes it easier when you are plugging in your phone into your PC and maybe transferring files across, for example. But if you do not know what this actually does, you can go ahead and Google it and look a little bit further. We're going to hit uninstall. And as you can see straight away, I don't have to worry about it making a restore point because I did uncheck that myself. Like I said, you don't need to. For you, you may want to just keep it selected. We're going to continue. Once again, scan. And then we're going to select all, delete, and there it's gone. Now I'm going to speed up the process of me doing it because I've given 2 examples. What you want to do is go ahead and uninstall everything you do not need. If you are unsure, just leave it. It's not that important. But things like Microsoft Bing, Clipchamp, Microsoft Teams are all things I do not use. So as long as you know for certain you do not use them, then go ahead and remove them now. So there we have it. That's my Windows 11 default apps removed. Anything that's left here are things that I need or want. So for example, the Xbox services here, you would have seen that I did remove Game Bar, and that's simply because I do not use the Game Bar features. I don't talk to people on Xbox parties. I do play games on the Xbox app, but I always use Discord for communication and talking to friends anyway. So here's what's left of the default apps. Now one other little tool in here, so if we click on tools here, you do have an auto run manager, and you can unselect things that you don't want running at startup from here as well. And we will remove Microsoft Edge auto launch, OneDrive, as we do not need these, and we don't need the security health starting up with Windows anyway. And then the rest we're just going to leave. If you've got a bunch of things already installed here, you're going to have way more here compared to what I have on this fresh install. So if you're unsure whether something is needed at startup, just leave it be and don't bother removing it. You also have a junk file cleaner here, which could be pretty handy. You can select scan here and it will search for any junk files and clean them up for you. It's not something I really need, and once again, we're on a fresh install, so it's not something we're going to use right now. You can see here, these are all the things that the junk file cleaner could remove for us. But we're pretty much done here. Let's restart the PC and see the results of the debloated Windows 11. So now that we're back in Windows, let's take a look at our task manager and see what the debloat what differences the debloat has made. So as you can see on the CPU tab, we have got our processes down to under 80. So that's about a reduction of about 60. Our utilization hasn't really changed. Once again, there was nothing really running, and there still isn't running on this fresh system. So the utilization hasn't changed much. If we take a look at the memory usage, I believe we were using about 3.8 gigabytes stock. So we have got that down by about 1 gigabyte. For you guys, like I said, that have just installed Windows with a Microsoft account, you may have had more to get rid of. So yours might have been higher, closer to 4 or 5 gigabytes in use. So you may see a larger change in the memory reduction. If we take a look here and we look at all the pinned apps, there isn't really much here now. And the same with the default apps, only the things we wanted to keep. Some of these things didn't appear within the Revo Uninstaller, but that's probably because Windows does actually need them. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. That's how to debloat Windows 11 in a pretty safe manner. We haven't completely stripped Windows or disabled any services. If we do just take another look at services, we're probably going to see a lot more selected as manual now. And like I said before, this does not mean they can't run at all. It just means they won't run until they're needed to. Anyway, I hope this video helped you out. If any of you guys have issues with debloating Windows or you're stuck on any of the steps, feel free to join my Discord. I'll leave a link in the description. I'll catch you guys in the next video.